My name is Brinley Kane. 24 hours after my father's casket hit the ground, my own half-brother grabbed my arm, dragged me across the garage, and threw me into the loft apartment above it, the GALA. The steel door slammed. One lock, one click. Final. He shoved the deed to our $5 million lake house through the gap before it sealed. Sign it over, Brinley, or you never come out. His mother, my father's wife of the last 20-plus years, leaned in and whispered loud enough for me to hear through the metal. "Enjoy the rats, darling. They bite harder than family." The door went black. No windows, no air, no second chances. If you've ever wondered how fast the people who grew up in the same house as you can decide you're worth more dead than alive, the minute there's money involved. Don't move. What I found inside that garage loft made both of them scream louder than I ever did. Smash subscribe and the bell right now, because you're not ready for how this ends. The second the steel door slammed, I pounded it until my palms went numb. "Let me out, Nash." Silence. Then slow footsteps walking away. I slid down the door, still wearing the same black dress from the cemetery, and the whole thing played in my head like a bad movie I couldn't pause. Dad married Vanessa the year I turned 3. I remember the courthouse steps, me holding his hand while she signed the papers. 9 months later, Nash came home from the hospital red-faced and screaming. I gave him my stuffed alligator because Dad's first wife had just died, and I thought babies fixed everything. From that day on, he was my little brother. Period. I shared my room when he had nightmares. I let him have the last slice of pizza every single Friday. When he wrecked Dad's truck at 16, I told Dad it was me, so Nash wouldn't lose his license. When he flunked out of college, I paid the tuition so Dad wouldn't find out. When he started disappearing to casinos in Tunica and Shreveport, I wired him $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 over 8 years to keep loan sharks from breaking his knees. Every time he cried on the phone and swore it was the last time. I never asked for a thank you. That's what big sisters do, right? Yesterday was the funeral. Nash stood beside the casket, looking broken eyes, red-hugging everyone who walked past. Vanessa played the perfect grieving widow, black veil, trembling voice, clutching my arm like we were best friends. They kept saying, "We're all we have left now." The reception at the lake house lasted 4 hours. Caterers, old neighbors, half the Titans roster Dad used to take fishing. Nash poured drinks, told stories about Dad teaching him to drive the boat. Vanessa accepted casseroles and condolences like royalty. The second the last taillights disappeared down the driveway, everything changed. Nash dropped his glass in the sink so hard it shattered. Vanessa kicked off her heels and snapped, "Get her upstairs." Now. I thought they were drunk. I was wrong. Nash grabbed my wrist, same grip he used when we were kids, and he wanted the remote and dragged me through the garage. Vanessa followed with a thick manila folder and a smile I'd never seen before. They marched me up the exterior metal stairs to the GALA. The door was already open. Nash shoved me inside so hard I stumbled and hit the floor. Vanessa stepped in behind me, calm as Sunday morning, and laid the folder on an old workbench. "Deed to the lake house. Life insurance beneficiary forms. Blank power of attorney. Sign," she said. I laughed. Couldn't help it. "You're insane." Nash closed the door until only a sliver of light remained. "We're not asking." I stood up slowly. "This isn't a negotiation. You can't make me transfer anything." Vanessa flipped through the pages like she'd rehearsed it. "We've had 8 months to plan since the first heart scare. You really think we waited this long for nothing?" Nash leaned against the doorframe. "You always fixed my messes, Brinley. Fix this one, sign, and you walk out. Don't, and you stay until you change your mind." I looked at the kid I'd protected my entire life and felt nothing but ice. "Get out." Vanessa shrugged. "Suit yourself." Nash gave me that same disappointed sigh he used when I wouldn't lend him the car in high school, then pulled the door shut. One click of the lock. 25 years of calling him my little brother, and it ended with a single piece of steel between us. Within an hour, the air inside turned suffocating. 85 degrees outside is normal for Nashville in July, but inside a sealed steel and concrete box with zero ventilation and 90% humidity, it was a different kind of hell. The metal walls absorbed the sun and threw it back hotter. My skin went from dry to drenched in minutes. Every breath felt like sucking steam through a wet towel. I ripped the black dress over my head and threw it across the loft. The thin tank underneath glued itself to me instantly. Sitting still wasn't an option. If I stopped moving, the panic would take over and I'd waste energy I couldn't afford to lose. I dropped to my knees and started crawling, palms sliding over the dusty floor, searching for anything that might help. Old sleeping bags, a couple of broken camp chairs, paint cans, a rolled-up tarp. Then my fingers hit hard plastic. 6 full cases of bottled water, shrink-wrapped and stacked exactly the way Dad always did before duck season. He was obsessed with staying hydrated on those freezing blinds at 3 in the morning. I used to tease him about it. I never thought his overpreparation would be the only thing keeping me alive right now. I tore the plastic with my nails, grabbed a bottle, and rolled the cold surface across my forehead and neck before twisting the cap. The water was warm and tasted like plastic, but it was the best thing I'd ever swallowed. I forced myself to stop at half. Next to the water were 2 big Rubbermaid tubs sealed tight. I popped the lids. One was packed with vacuum-sealed beef jerky and trail mix. The other held boxes of those disgusting chocolate peanut butter protein bars Dad swore gave him energy on 12-hour sits. Enough calories to last weeks if I rationed. He really had thought of everything. I dragged 1 case of water to the center of the floor and sat against it, legs trembling, sweat running into my eyes. The heat was doing something to my head. Thoughts slowed, anger turned syrupy. There was no escaping the memory I'd been dodging since the door closed. 2 months ago, Dad was in the cardiac ICU at Vanderbilt. Machines, beeping tubes in his arms, oxygen hissing through the nasal cannula. He looked fragile, but his eyes were clear when he told the nurse to wheel him to the family consultation room and close the door. No Vanessa. No Nash. Just us. He gripped my hand so hard the IV line shifted. "I rewrote the will last week," he rasped. "Everything goes to you, Brinley. The lake house, the company stock, the $2 million life insurance policy. All of it. Vanessa keeps her Mercedes, her jewelry, and the clothes on her back. That's every dime she gets. Nash gets nothing. 0. I tried to pull away, laughing nervously. "Dad, stop. You're scaring me. They're still your wife and son. They are not my family." His voice cracked like a whip even through the oxygen mask. "She married me for the lifestyle. He's been bleeding me dry since he discovered cards. I've paid off $437,000 in markers so collectors wouldn't put him in the river. I'm finished covering for them. When I'm gone, they'll come at you with crocodile tears and guilt trips. Do not believe a single word. Promise me you'll protect what I built." I promised. Mostly to calm him down. I thought the medication and the fear of dying were talking. I figured when he got home, everything would smooth over like it always did. He died 6 days later. Now I was sprawled on a concrete floor in my own garage, drinking water he'd bought years ago for hunting trips, and every syllable he'd forced out in that hospital room felt carved into my bones. I pressed my cheek to the cool floor and spread my arms, trying to leach heat into the concrete. My pulse pounded in my ears, sweat pooled under me, the air tasted metallic. Dad had prepared for hurricanes, blackouts, even the apocalypse, but never for the people sleeping under his roof, deciding his daughter was disposable the second his heart stopped. I counted the remaining bottles by the faint strip of light under the door, 23 after the one I'd opened, and made myself breathe slower. The humidity kept rising. My skin wouldn't stop dripping. Time lost meaning. I just lay there waiting for morning or for whatever came next. Morning came with the sound of boots on the metal stairs. The clanging echoed like gunshots in the hollow space. I pushed myself up from the floor head, swimming mouth dry as paper. Light sliced through the gap as the steel door cracked open 6 inches and stopped. Nash's silhouette filled the gap. He didn't step inside. He tossed a single 8-ounce bottle of water. It rolled across the concrete and stopped against my knee. Then a chocolate peanut butter protein bar still in the wrapper landed beside it. "That's it for today," he said, voice flat. "Sign the papers, and tomorrow you get a real meal." I stared at the tiny bottle. 8 ounces. After 14 hours in this sauna, it felt like a joke. Vanessa's voice floated in from behind him, sweet and poisonous. "Come on, big sister. You always gave me the last bite when we were kids. Share one more time." She laughed the same fake laugh she used at dinner parties when Dad wasn't looking. Nash crouched, so his face filled the opening. His eyes were bloodshot. "We're not playing Brinley. You stay in here until you sign or until you can't hold a pen anymore. Your choice." I picked up the bottle, twisted the cap, and drank half in one pull. The water hit my stomach like ice. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and met his stare. No words. Just silence. Vanessa leaned over his shoulder. "Starve, then. Makes no difference to us." She nudged him. "Close it." The door started to swing shut. I finally spoke, voice cracked and raw. "You're going to kill me for a house." Nash paused, one hand on the handle. For half a second, something flickered across his face. Something that might have been the little brother I once knew. Then it was gone. "Dad's already dead," he said. "This is just paperwork." The door slammed. The lock clicked. The footsteps retreated. I sank back to the floor, the tiny bottle clutched in my fist. My heart was hammering 2 fast, irregular skipping beats. The room spun in slow circles. Black dots danced at the edges of my vision. I recognized the feeling from the one time I'd overheated at cheer practice in high school, except this time there was no coach, no ice towels, no ambulance waiting. I tore open the protein bar with my teeth and forced down 2 bites. It tasted like chalk and despair, but I needed the salt. My hands shook so badly the wrapper fluttered like a trapped moth. The dizziness got worse. I lay flat again, cheek to concrete, counting heartbeats, the way Dad taught me when I was 9 and scared of thunderstorms. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. But the numbers blurred. My tongue felt thick. The air pressed down like a wet blanket trying to smother me. For the first time since the door closed, real fear hit, not anger, not betrayal, pure animal terror. I could actually die in here. Not in a week, not in days. Today, tomorrow, soon. The thought was so big it crowded out everything else. I curled on my sidearms wrapped around my ribs and listened to my pulse stutter. The protein bar sat heavy in my stomach. The 8 ounces of water were already gone. I closed my eyes and saw Dad's face in the ICU again, heard his raspy warning. I had laughed then. I wasn't laughing now. The heat kept climbing, the walls kept sweating. My skin stopped producing sweat, a bad sign I remembered from some survival documentary. Dry, mouth-racing, heart tunnel vision. I was sliding into heat stroke, and there was no one coming. I pressed my forehead hard against the floor and whispered the only thing left to say. "Please." I was crawling on the floor, vision tunneling, when my hand hit cold metal. The impact sent a jolt up my arm. I collapsed forward, cheek smacking concrete, and for a moment, everything went black. When the gray cleared, my fingers were curled around the edge of a small steel box wedged under the frame of the old loft bed. Dad's hunting locker. I'd seen it 1,000 times and never opened it. I dragged it out with shaking arms. The latch was stiff from years of dust, but it popped. Inside, spare socks, a folding knife, a headlamp with dead batteries, and something heavy wrapped in oilcloth. An Iridium 9575 satellite phone. The same brick Dad carried on every offshore fishing trip and every duck lease where cell service didn't exist. He always bragged it worked anywhere on the planet. The screen was cracked, but when I pressed the power button, the green backlight flickered to life. 11% battery. No signal bars, just the satellite icon blinking searching. I almost cried. I crawled to the highest corner of the loft, pressed my back against the sloping metal roof where the signal might be strongest, and held the phone above my head like a desperate prayer. 1 bar appeared, then 2. Then the little satellite icon stopped blinking and turned solid. My hands shook so badly I could barely navigate. I scrolled to the only number I had memorized besides Dad's, Tegan Morrow. Tegan and I met freshman year at Vanderbilt. She was pre-law, I was business, and we bonded over hating the same accounting professor. After graduation, she became a notary public, and 2 months ago, the exact person who watched Dad sign the new will in that ICU consultation room. She knew everything. The call connected on the 3rd ring. Brinley. Her voice sounded a million miles away and right beside me at the same time. Tegan. My throat was sandpaper. Nash and Vanessa locked me in the GALA above the garage. They want me to sign over the lake house and the insurance. They're going to let me die in here. Call the FBI right now. A beat of dead silence, then Tegan's voice cracked. Oh my God. Are you hurt? Just do it. Please. Tell them kidnapping for ransom, interstate financial fraud, whatever makes it federal. Hurry. I'm on it. I'm calling 911 and then the Nashville field office. Stay on the line. Can't. Battery dying. Just go. I love you. Hold on. She screamed my address into the phone to someone else in the background, then the line went dead. The screen flashed 3% and shut off forever. I dropped the phone and slid down the wall until I was sitting. My heart was racing so hard it hurt. 11% had bought me maybe 45 seconds of talk time, but it was enough. Tegan was the one person on earth who knew the will was real, who had seen Dad sign it, who understood exactly how much money was at stake. She wouldn't hesitate. I curled into a ball on the floor, arms wrapped around my knees, and waited. The heat pressed harder now, like it knew time was running out. My lips were cracked. My tongue felt swollen. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears. Minutes crawled. I counted them by the pounding in my temples. 5, 10, 15. Then I thought, please let it be less than an hour. I closed my eyes and pictured Tegan bursting into the FBI lobby, waving the notarized will, screaming my name. I pictured agents grabbing vests and rifles. I pictured helicopters. I pictured Nash's face when the first siren reached the house. The waiting was worse than the heat. Hope is a brutal thing when you're not sure it will arrive in time. I pressed Dad's dead satellite phone to my chest like a talisman and whispered into the dark, "Hurry!" Less than 40 minutes later, helicopters tore the sky open. The entire roof shook with rotor wash. Sirens screamed from every direction, growing louder until the air itself vibrated. My heart slammed against my ribs. I tried to stand, but collapsed instantly. I crawled on bleeding knees toward the sliver of light under the door, tears cutting clean tracks through the grime on my face. A voice exploded over a bullhorn outside. FBI hands in the air. Come out of the residence now. The steel door didn't open. It was obliterated. A battering ram hit it once, and the whole thing flew inward on broken hinges. Sunlight poured in like liquid fire. I threw an arm over my eyes and screamed at the pain of it. Black tactical boots thundered up the metal stairs. Red laser dots danced across the walls. FBI clear, clear, victim in sight. 2 agents dropped beside me. One knelt, pressed fingers to my carotid, pulse rapid but present. The other threw a silver mylar blanket over my shoulders and shouted, "We've got her, need medics up here now." Strong arms lifted me onto a stretcher. The world tilted crazily as they carried me down the stairs I had been dragged up 30 hours earlier. The scene outside was chaos organized. 3 black FBI Suburbans and 6 Davidson County Sheriff cruisers blocked the driveway lights, strobing red and blue. A sleek black helicopter circled low overhead, blades chopping the thick July air. Neighbors stood on lawns in bathrobes, phones raised. In the center of the driveway stood Nash and Vanessa in steel handcuffs. They had been caught inside Dad's study, literally holding the evidence. One agent held up a clear plastic bag, the original last will and testament, corners charred, yanked from the fireplace seconds before it became ash. Another agent waved a stack of forged transfer documents they had been practicing my signature on. A half-empty bottle of my own handwriting samples sat on the desk beside them. Nash saw me on the stretcher and lost it. He lunged forward, dragging the two agents holding him a full step. "You backstabbing bitch," he roared. "You called the feds on your own blood. You just destroyed your family." His voice cracked. For one heartbeat, he looked exactly like the scared 4-year-old who used to run to me when thunderstorms hit. Then the rage slammed back down. Vanessa dropped to her knees in the gravel mascara rivers, cutting through her perfect makeup. "Please." It was all Nash. I begged him to stop. "I never wanted this, officers. I'm the victim here." A deputy hauled her up by the cuffs. She kept shrieking as they marched her to the nearest cruiser and folded her into the back seat. Special Agent Harper Lead, Agent Vest crisp hair in a severe bun, strode over to my stretcher. She placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Miss Kane, you're safe. Vanderbilt trauma is 2 minutes out by air. We have everything we need. Attempted destruction of evidence. Kidnapping, extortion across state lines because of the insurance policy. They're done." I managed a whisper. "Don't let them near me. Ever." "Copy that," she said, eyes hard. "They'll never breathe free air around you again." Paramedics lifted me into the waiting ambulance. The doors slammed. As we rolled down the driveway, I caught one final glimpse through the back window, Nash being forced headfirst into an SUV, still screaming silent curses at me. Vanessa, already hidden behind tinted glass, head bowed. The ambulance turned onto the county road. The FBI helicopter banked overhead, escorting us all the way to the helipad. Real sunlight poured through the windows, warm and clean and impossible. I closed my eyes and let the tears come, not from pain anymore, but from the single overwhelming fact that I had survived the people who once shared my last name. 2 days later, I opened my eyes in a cool, quiet hospital room with IVs in both arms. The first face I saw was Special Agent Harper sitting in the corner chair, tablet on her lap. She stood the moment I stirred. "Welcome back, Miss Kane. You're in Vanderbilt trauma. Dehydration and heat stroke, but you're stable." I nodded weakly. My throat still felt lined with sand. She pulled the chair closer. "We need your full statement while it's fresh. Whenever you're ready." I talked for 3 hours straight. Voice hoarse, tears coming and going. Every detail: the funeral reception, the sudden attack, the forged documents, the tiny bottle of water, the satellite phone. Harper recorded everything, asked sharp follow-up questions, never interrupted when I cried. When I finished, she closed the tablet. "Your friend Tegan delivered the notarized will within 20 minutes of your call. That, plus the attempted arson of the original document and the forged transfers, made this slam-dunk federal. Kidnapping with ransom demand, wire fraud, evidence, tampering. They're buried." A week later, Harper returned with Assistant U.S. Attorney Ramirez, a woman in a Navy suit who looked like she ate defense attorneys for breakfast. Ramirez laid 2 thick plea agreements on the tray table. "They lawyered up fast," she said. "Public defenders tried to fight, but the evidence is airtight. They're offering pleas to avoid trial and the possibility of 40-plus years each." She slid the first packet forward. "Nash Kane, 14 years federal prison. No parole, supervised release. 3 years, full restitution." Second packet. "Vanessa Kane, 12 years federal prison, no parole. 3 years, supervised release. Full restitution." Then, the civil settlement joint and several liability, $3,200,000 in compensatory and punitive damages for physical and emotional harm, payable to you over 20 years, secured against any future earnings or inheritance they might ever receive. I stared at the numbers. 14 and 12 years. They would be almost 60 and 70 when they walked out if they lived that long. Ramirez continued. They forfeit all claim to Roger Kane's estate. The will stands exactly as written. They also waive appeal of both the criminal and civil judgments. In exchange, we don't push for the maximum. Harper added quietly, they want to see you. One last time. We told them only if you agree. I laughed a dry, bitter sound. No. Never again. Ramirez nodded unsurprised. She turned to the last page of the civil agreement. Then just your signature here, and initial here. The criminal pleas are already executed. They were transported to separate federal facilities this morning. I took the pen. My hand didn't shake. I signed Brinley Kane in firm, clear strokes, the same signature they had tried to forge while I was dying 30 feet above their heads. Ramirez gathered the documents. It's done. They're gone. The house, the accounts, everything is legally yours alone. Harper stood. We'll have agents posted until you're discharged, then help you change locks and secure the property. I leaned back against the pillows. The IV dripped steadily. For the first time in weeks, the weight on my chest felt lighter. They left me alone with the quiet hum of machines and the knowledge that the two people who had once shared my dinner table would spend the next decade and more in concrete boxes paying me every month for what they did. Justice tasted cold and clean. 6 months later, I stood alone on the wide wooden dock of the lake house. The moving truck had left an hour ago. Every trace of Nash and Vanessa was gone. The monogrammed towels, the gambling chip ashtrays, the bottles of expensive perfume she never finished. I watched the taillights disappear down the gravel drive, then turn the key on the new security gate behind them. It closed with a final metallic clang. I walked back through the house one last time. Every lock had been replaced with heavy-duty smart locks keyed only to my fingerprint. Every camera now fed to an app only I controlled. Every phone number, every email address, every social media account that had ever carried their names was deleted from my devices. I even changed my own last will with Tegan as witness if I died tomorrow. Everything went to charity. They would never touch another cent. The cleaners had come yesterday. The place smelled like lemon and fresh paint instead of their cigarettes and lies. Dad's old study was exactly as he left it. The same leather chair, the same duck decoys on the shelf, the same faint scent of pipe tobacco that no cleaner could ever erase. I carried a single glass of bourbon to the end of the dock and sat on the bench Dad built the summer I turned 16. The sun was setting over Old Hickory Lake, turning the water gold and blood red. A lone heron lifted off the far bank and flew straight across the reflection. I raised the glass to the empty air. I kept my promise, Dad. The wind carried the words away. I thought about the letters Nash had tried to send from FCI Memphis returned unopened. I thought about the collect calls from Vanessa at FMC Carswell blocked the first time every time. I thought about the monthly restitution checks that would arrive like clockwork for the next 20 years, each one a tiny reminder that some debts never go away. I had everything now, the house, the company, the money, the quiet. And I had nothing, no brother, no stepmother, no family dinners, no one to call on Christmas morning. I stared at the flat, perfect surface of the lake and spoke the only truth that still mattered. I once had a half-brother. He shared my blood for 25 years. I shared my life with him for longer. Then he locked me in a room to die for a piece of land. So no, I don't have a brother anymore. I don't have a family by blood. Real family is the one that stays when you have nothing left to give. And mine starts and ends with me. I poured the rest of the bourbon into the water, watched the amber swirl and vanish, and walked back up the dock without looking behind me. The house lights came on automatically as I approached, warm and welcoming, and mine alone. I stepped inside, closed the door, and for the first time in 6 months I didn't lock it. There was no one left to keep out.